Ready to dive into the mind of Nietzsche? We're tackling the Spoke Zarathustra today. A real doozy.
Always a good choice, especially if you're trying to wrap your head around his idea of the Superman.
Right. So we've got excerpts from Zarathustra itself, plus some background from the introduction to the book. Just to be clear, though, we're not trying to make you Nietzsche experts in a day.
No crash courses here.
It's more about those aha moments, the ones that change how you see things, like Zarathustra wanted. Speaking of, who is this Zarathustra? Anyway, 10 years in the mountains, can you imagine?
Well, he's a bit of an enigma. Nietzsche describes him coming down from this mountain solitude after all that thinking, but he's not.
Like Moses with stone tablets.
Yeah, exactly. Not here to lay down the law.
So less prophet, more like, what? A philosophical life coach.
That's an interesting way to put it. I like that. It's about awakening potential. This downgoing, it's not about giving up. It's about engaging with the world, messy as it is.
Okay, so no easy steps to becoming the Superman then.
Not exactly. But we do get these stages of transformation, vivid ones too. The camel, the lion, and the child. Each one a phase in becoming the Übermensch.
Okay, break it down. What's it mean to embody? Like the camel, the lion, and then a child.
So the camel, think of that as shouldering burdens. It's about accepting, tradition, knowledge, what society throws at you, like a camel carrying stuff across the desert.
Right, that sense of resilience, duty. We all start off carrying something, I guess.
Exactly. But then we evolve into the lion. This is all about questioning, saying no to those burdens that aren't working anymore, finding your voice, challenging things, breaking free.
So the camel carries, the lion roars and makes his own path. Powerful imagery. Then it gets kind of wild. We end up as kids. What's that about?
The child is innocence, new beginnings. It's approaching everything with fresh eyes. That wonder, the creativity, free from all the old rules and limitations. Imagine shedding all that baggage and seeing the world again, truly seeing it.
So rediscovering that childlike awe, but only after you've gotten rid of all the crap you don't need. That's relatable, even if you don't buy the whole Superman thing. I mean, we all question things, some more rebellious than others, right? Hopefully we find a new way of seeing things.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is that it's not linear. These stages, we might cycle through them at different times in our lives, right? The new challenges, old beliefs we got to let go of, even in the tech world, right? Entrepreneurs, they often start as camels, that burden of their vision.
Then they become lions, disrupt things. Then hopefully they get to that childlike innovation again. I like that. Okay, so we've got Zarathustra coming down the mountain to, what was it? Awaken our potential, not to preach. And we've got this journey he lays out, the camel, the lion, the child. Nietzsche's famous for some intense ideas beyond good and evil, for example. What did he mean by that?
That's one that often gets misinterpreted, like he's saying, forget morality, be ruthless.
Which isn't quite it, right?
Not at all. He's challenging us to really think about where our values come from. Are we just blindly accepting what we're told? Or are we making our own values based on, really understanding ourselves and the world? That's what beyond good and evil means.
So take responsibility for your own moral code. Don't just accept what you're handed. But if we're doing that, where does something like pity fit in? Nietzsche had some strong thoughts on this, right?
Oh, he did. He saw pity as, well, a tricky thing. It often came from weakness, he thought, wanting to avoid suffering, not face it.
So less about genuine compassion, more about shielding yourself from stuff you don't want to see.
Exactly. And those comforting illusions, even with good intentions, they stop us from seeing clearly, from creating values that are really our own.
Holding us back from really getting ourselves, getting the world.
Right. Nietzsche thought it kept us stuck, morally speaking, clinging to those prepackaged values he warned us about.
Okay, so we're creating our own values,
Yeah.
facing the hard stuff. Where does this leave the will to power? One of his most famous ideas. Often misunderstood, though. People think domination, ruthlessness.
Right, that's the stereotype. It's not about controlling other people. Think of it more like this inner drive to grow, to create, to overcome, self-mastery, but not in a limiting way, you see. It's the force that pushes you to become more.
That fire in your belly.
Yeah.
The thing that says, go beyond, break your own limits. So how does this all connect to the Superman?
The Superman embodies that striving. They're not some static ideal. It's someone always becoming, embracing that will to power fully.
So less about reaching some perfect state, more about always evolving, pushing yourself.
Exactly. It's about breaking those limits, really thriving. It goes back to those stages even. Camel, lion, child, the Superman, they embody parts of each, always growing.
Now, I got to ask you about something that always throws me. The eternal return. this whole living your life over and over thing. It's in the intro to Zarathustra. Frankly, it freaks me out a little. How does that fit in with the Superman idea?
Oh, it's definitely meant to make you squirm a bit. It's not so much about literally being reborn, more about looking at how you're living now.
So, like a lens to examine your values.
Exactly. He's asking, if you had to relive it, all the good, the bad, every decision, would you embrace it? Or be filled with regret?
That'll make you think twice about how you spend your day, the choices you make.
For sure. And for Nietzsche, this eternal return, it highlights how important it is to live authentically, do things that matter to you, build a life you'd want to live, even countless times over.
Because if you wouldn't want to repeat it, maybe that's a sign something needs to change.
Definitely something to think about, right?
Makes you think, would you hit replay on your life or try to skip to the good parts?
Yeah.
Let's face it, not everyone's going to go for this whole Superman thing, the will to power, the eternal return. What about the people who like things as they are, the familiar, the comfortable? Where do they fit in Nietzsche's philosophy?
That's a really good point. Nietzsche actually talks about this. He knew that the Superman path wasn't for everyone. He figured a lot of people would be happy just having, a more comfortable life. He called them the last men, the ones who aren't striving, who are okay with just, seeking pleasure, not really pushing themselves.
So what would he say to those last men out there, the ones who might be listening thinking, this Superman stuff sounds exhausting?
He wouldn't judge them, really. He's just acknowledging there's different ways to live. Remember, he's not trying to force everyone into the same mold. It's about realizing that we all have different potentials, different things drive us.
So embrace the differences, even if some paths are tougher, more about questioning and striving.
Exactly. Nietzsche's inviting us to figure out what kind of life we want. Superman or not, his whole philosophy is about knowing yourself, questioning, creating a life that's really yours.
A powerful message. Even if you don't agree with everything he says, it's about owning your choices, trying to live authentically. As we wrap up this Nietzschean deep dive, what's one thing you hope our listeners will take away?
Think about Zarathustra's journey. It's all about the unknown, going beyond what you believe, what feels safe. Don't be afraid to climb your own mountain, face your own dragons. You never know what you'll find.
Maybe even a little bit of the Superman within yourself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Nietzsche's Spoke Zarathustra. Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep striving, and keep exploring the world.